안녕하세요, 주호입니다. Today we will look at the relationship and differences between der, nun space der, and nunder from the perspective of historical linguistics. To begin with, this diagram illustrates how the noun der went from meaning place to nun space der, where it expresses tasks and situations, then to nunder, where it expresses background circumstances, and finally to nundeyo, where it has certain conversational functions. Looking at this historical progression and seeing how these grammatical forms relate to each other will help explain why nun space der and nunder can be ambiguous, even for native speakers. So it all begins with der, which is a bound noun meaning place. Take for example, 좀 더 조용할 데로 가자. Let's go somewhere quieter. In this usage, der simply means place and refers to spatial locations. Extending from this, the meaning of place came to mean aspects. Take for example, 친절한 데가 마음에 들어요. I'm fond of her kindness. In this usage, der has taken a metaphorical extension to express a particular aspect of the girl. It still has the meaning of place, but it no longer only refers to spatial locations and can express abstract places. Over time, der went from a location meaning to having a time meaning. An example of this occurring in English is the word behind, which went from describing location, as in John is standing behind the door, to describing time, as in John is behind in his rent. As der progressed to having its time meaning, it became a noun used to represent tasks and situations. When it comes to expressing tasks, der conveys the process, action, or activity at hand. Take for example, 이 책을 읽는데 3시간이 걸렸어. It took 3 hours to read this book. Here the meaning of place has faded away and now der is used to represent the meaning when it comes to. You could interpret this sentence as, when it comes to reading this book, it took 3 hours. Here's another example. 이 책은 한국 역사를 이해하는데 큰 도움이 됐어. This book helped me a lot in understanding Korean history. This could be interpreted as, when it came to understanding Korean history, or in the task of understanding Korean history. When it comes to expressing situations, der conveys the circumstances or conditions at hand. Here, der has a more general meaning of time when. For example, 운동하는데 팔목이 아프신가요? Do your ankles hurt while exercising? With these examples, you might be able to see that the der phrase functions as an element which establishes ground for the next part of the sentence. There are more examples of nun space der at UKG-011 if you want a better understanding. Now let's take a detailed look at the evolution of der. It began with the meaning of place, and then that faded into the general meaning of task and situation. This happens as der went from a bound noun to a nominalized form, similar to nungot. That itself is a topic too big to talk about here, so we'll illustrate the concept with some similar examples. The first is jigyong, which went from meaning border or territory to having a neutralized meaning of situation or state. Compare for example jigyong을 넘다, which is cross the border, with 힘든 지경이다, which describes a difficult situation. Here we see the specific meaning of border has faded into a general meaning of situation. The second example is 노릇, which went from meaning job or role to also having a neutralized meaning of situation or state. Compare for example 선생 노릇, which is teaching job, with 정말 황당한 노릇, which describes a really embarrassing situation. With these two examples, we can see how nouns go from having a strong and specific meaning to being used to describe general situations. With this, their semantic meaning decreases as their grammatical content increases. In the same way, der went from the noun meaning place to the grammatical form nun space der, where its meaning has faded and now refers to the task or situation at hand. From nun space there came the clausal connective nunder, which presents background circumstances to the listener. With this connective, the speaker presents circumstances in the first clause with nunder and uses this as background for the message in the following clause. For example, 오늘은 바쁜데 내일 만나도 괜찮을까요? I'm busy today, can we meet tomorrow? Here the speaker sets up the circumstances in the first clause and follows this with the message that they would like to meet tomorrow instead. Let's consider how nun space there relates to nunder. The two are sometimes ambiguously similar and even native speakers have trouble differentiating them. This is because they have similar meanings and sound exactly the same in spoken language where spaces don't really exist. Compare the following. A. 비자를 받는 데에 뭐뭐가 필요해요? What do I need for the visa? B. 비자를 받아야 하는데 뭐뭐가 필요해요? I need to get a visa, and so what sort of things do I need? In both sentences, there refers to getting a visa. In A, nun space there refers to the situation, and in B, nunder presents the background circumstances. The two are so similar because nunder evolved from nun space there. That is, there was used to represent situations and then became a clause connector which presents background circumstances. Let's look at another example. A. 사람들이 공부하는 데에 조용히 해야죠. You need to be quiet when people are studying. B. 사람들이 공부하는데 좀 조용히 하세요. People are studying, so please be quiet. Once again, in A, nun space there is used to represent the task or conditions at hand. That is, people studying is presented as the setting for the following information. In B, nunder is used to present the background circumstances. And here, people studying is presented as the background for the following information. At this point, the similarity between nun space there and nunder should be fairly intuitive. In fact, the two can appear to be the same thing even for native speakers. 어차피 여행 가는데 돈이 들잖아요. 어차피 여행 가는데 돈이 들잖아요. We need to spend money on the trip anyway. Here we have an example where the two are very similar and there's only a subtle difference in nuance between them. When presented with these two sentences, some native speakers will even incorrectly say that B is an abbreviation of A. This ambiguity exists because language evolution is gradual and continuous. Language change does not occur at discrete stages, and for that reason there's a fuzzy boundary between these grammatical forms. This is why native speakers will sometimes mistakenly add or omit spacing between nun and der. There's even ambiguity between der meaning place and der meaning task. For example, 비자 파는 데에서 문제가 생겼어요, which could be interpreted as A. A problem arose in the place where you receive a visa, or B. A problem arose during the process of receiving a visa. The final stage is from clause connective nunder to the sentence final feature nundeyo. The conversational functions of nundeyo are too varied to talk about here, so you can watch an overview in UKG-006 or find the specific usages at UKR-005. We won't say much about this ending other than nunder has now taken on a discourse function. So the whole progression is from a noun meaning place to a sentence final feature with many various usages. Linguists suggest this will continue to some further evolution in the future. This process you see here is known as grammaticalization and is basically about how a word or phrase becomes a grammatical item. Another example of grammaticalization is the particle 한테, which also comes from the noun der. But in that instance, the process went from one place in 한데 to mean same place and then together with. A demonstration can be found at UKR 019. I hope this lesson has been helpful.